Is it going?
Yep.
All right, stupid StreamYard. Hey there, beer tubers. Welcome back to Maxwell Star and your host, Maxwell Star, with Beer Analysis 101, with a special 2-year anniversary episode. That's right. I think it was, April or August 15th, 2017 that we started doing this whole thing on Mr. Motherfucking Lee's former channel, or current channel, rather. Not the current beer tube thing. Anyway, as I ruin the second anniversary episode, let's introduce the panel that we have tonight. First and foremost, let's start with Mr. Lee. How you doing, sir?
Fine. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. All right, then.
I didn't want to ruin it with like a dirty joke or something. This is supposed to be like special, right?
Well, I pretty much already ruined the intro, so.
Okay, well, fuck yourself, Nick. Let's get it going. God damn.
Sounds like last year.
All right. And, of course, we also got Matt from Massive Beers, who's secretly hiding Joe in his basement somewhere.
Hey, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. I mean, that's how I see it. But, yeah, I'm glad to be here. This beer, I've drank a couple in my lifetime. I can't wait to crack in this son of a bitch.
All right, moving over to the next person. Of course, we got Mr. Ashley Sexton of Sexton Brewing. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you. It's been 2 years. I've only been around for one, and I don't know why we're still doing this, but here we go.
We just have a tendency of, drinking beer together. But anyway.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Okay. And, of course, we got Mr. Off the 10th, who used to be on the 10th and used to be in the basement, who's changed a lot over the last 2 years.
I like change. I really do. Anyway, thanks, Nick, for hosting the second anniversary of Beer Analysis 101. I appreciate you having me on the panel.
No problem. And another one we'll get to here, of course, we got Mr. Greg, who's with us.
2 years of Beer Analysis 101, 1 year of masturbating to Ashley Sexton. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Yeah, and only part of that you knew he was a guy.
It still works.
Yeah. All right, and of course, last but certainly not least, we got Mr. Redbeard here tonight. Just kind of hiding in the backstage here because this stupid StreamYard thing only has 6 people.
You notice that apparently you're using the free trial of your premium version.
Yeah, they sent me an email today saying we've upgraded you for a free trial. If you want a permanent discount, you can buy now or something like that. I'm like, yeah, unless it's like $5 a month.
They brought it down to like 16.
Ooh, yeah, that's still too much.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pan back over to me. I'm going to leave Greg's camera off just because that way we don't have a Toby Go drift in the background. Let's get over to, first of all, what beer we're drinking, because I didn't introduce that at the start. We are doing a British legend. This is Thomas Hardy's Ale, a legendary British vintage ale or a barley wine. My particular bottle, of course, is stupid. There you go. Vintage 2017, bottle number 330-101. We'll introduce what bottles we have. I think most of us have the same year. Anyway, this bottle came to me, of course, courtesy of Greg. So thank you very much, Greg.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome too. All right. Anyway, moving right along. Let's go over to the beer history. Figure this stupid StreamYard shit out. This is, of course, our first episode of Beer Analysis 101. Doing StreamYard, says Google, whatever it was. The Hangouts went offline. So, the story of Thomas Hardy's Ale begins with Eldridge Pope Brewery in Dorchester, Dorset, in UK. The brewery's origins can be traced as far back as 1837, when hotel landlord Charles Eldridge and wife Sarah purchased the Green Dragon Brewery, turning it into a successful local venture. Sarah would continue running the brewery following Charles' death in 1846 in partnership with local brewmaster Samuel Mason under the name Eldridge Mason & Co. Following Mason's retirement in 1870, brothers Edwin and Alfred Pope purchased his shares in the brewery. Following year, Sarah Eldridge's son-in-law, John Tizard, passed away, after which the brothers purchased the remainder and assumed full control. In 1879, the Pope brothers purchased 4 acres of land and began work on their expanded brewery. This new brewery opened 2 years later in 1881 and quickly became Dorchester's largest employer, eventually changing its name to Eldridge Pope & Co. Limited. Also, during this time frame, poet and author Thomas Hardy born in 1840 in Dorchester, a local boy, had become world famous with such novels as Far from the Madding Crowd and Tess of the Deux Revels. Hopefully I pronounced that right. In 1968, during the festival to commemorate Thomas Hardy on the 40th anniversary of his death, Eldridge Pope brewmaster Ray Botting would be inspired to create what was then a very strong barley wine designed for aging, weighing in at a whopping 11.7% ABV. These bottles had included a label stating, "This beer will have improved if kept lying down at 55 Fahrenheit or 13 Celsius and will last for at least 25 years. Do not open before July 1969. So they were actually, like, back then telling people not to open it for 2 years or at least a year. And they were sold for £1 a piece, which was a lot of money at the time for a beer. Thomas Hardy was originally intended as a one-off, but was brewed again in 1974 and almost annually thereafter. Thomas Hardy's would achieve a cult-like status given the long aging reputation and complexities that would come out of the beer over time, with some describing the beer as a fine Madeira or a port more than so than beer. Thomas Hardy's ale remained in production until 1999 when it was discontinued, citing high production costs. Eldridge Pope the brewery would go close its doors a year later. In 2003, American beer importer Phoenix Imports commissioned O'Hanlon's Brewery in Exeter to resume production of the highly coveted beer. However, this would prove to be short-lived as well, as production ceased in 2008, again citing high production costs. In 2012, the rights to produce Thomas Hardy's and the original recipe were purchased by brothers Sandro and Michele Vecchiato, owners of an Italian beer importer, Interbrow, not to be confused with Interbrew, of course, a company responsible for distributing Founders, Sierra Nevada, and Lagunitas and beers alike in the Italian market. Determined to resurrect the brand, they assembled a brewing team at Meantime Brewing in Greenwich. Fucking pronunciations. Under the watch of brewmaster Derek Prentice. And after several years, the first vintage was released in 2015. There was a trial run in 2014 as a sample, but 2015 is when they released the first batch worldwide, and with a bottle and label similar to the original Eldridge Pope releases. The new vintages were a quick success, winning gold medals at both the International Beer Challenge and the World Beer Awards. The Thomas Hardy's Ale, what I have here, is an English barley wine, typically brewed around 11.7%. They've varied over the years between like 11.2 and 11.9 from what I've heard. It carries a reputation of being one of the world's best vintage ales and can be aged upwards of 25 years or more. For vintage 2017, the final beer was an 11.7% ABV barley wine brewed using Warminster Maris Otter and light crystal malts and Fuggle and Golding hops. In 2018, a special 50th anniversary Golden Edition, which is what Matt has, was brewed with the same malt and hops, but to a stronger 13%. There's also a barrel-aged historical version, which also exists, that has been brewed for the 2016, 2017, and 2018 vintages. 2016 used Hein cognac barrels, which before the show, I'll let Matt explain this part, but before the show, Matt told me about it. 2017, they used Tennessee whiskey, the actual brand Tennessee. And of course, in 2018, and York's been holding out on us, they used Chivas Regal whiskey barrels. All right, so I'll finish this history with reading a passage from Thomas Hardy's 1880 work, The Trumpet Major, in which he described the strong beer of Dorchester, which is the inspiration of this beer. It was the most beautiful color that the eye of an artist in beer could desire, full in body, yet as brisk as a volcano, piquant, without a twang, luminous as an autumn sunset, free from the streakiness of taste, but, finally, rather heady. And now. All right, so let's move over to beer histories, which I'm assuming are going to be short, except for one person on this panel. Let's go over to Lee. What's your history with this beer?
I've had this once before, or at least a version of this. Our friend Ewart was nice enough to acquire some bottles. I think it was an eBay or some sort of auction, some sort of online thing he got it from. I think it was eBay. I think when you could still do that. I don't know if you can still do that now. But yeah, he acquired some of the I guess the last of the O'Hanlon run, I believe, 2008, I think it was. And we did it on my channel. You just search for it on my channel, you'll find it. And he just knew I wanted to try it, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I love barley wines. It was actually absolutely exceptional. And that's pretty much my history.
Holy crap. Wow, that's pretty cool. All right. And so this is going to take most of the episode right here. But Matt, what's your history with this beer?
It's my favorite beer. It's actually my favorite beer of all time.
Oh wow.
It is. I mean, it's a weird. When I get into beer, like I think a lot of us do. You know what I mean? We get into beer, something kind of tantalizes us, and we get into it, and then eventually there's one beer that you have that's like, okay, it changes the game beyond what you thought the game would be changed, and that was Thomas Hardy for me. And it was something I could semi-readily get whenever I wanted. We're talking about like the late 90s, early 2000s when it wasn't super coveted. Even now it's coveted, but more by like super nerds. So I've had various vintages over the years. I've been lucky enough to I've been lucky enough to stumble in a case here and there of it over the years of varying vintages. I've had vintages from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and current ones. And it's just, honestly, it's one of my favorite beers. And honestly, it's like, if you look at the way the beer culture goes nowadays, it is, from you reading the history, it is a beer that was basically kind of scuttled twice, if not 3 times over, because it was too expensive to make. It's a beer before its time. You know what I mean? It's a beer that people dug, but you just couldn't make because it didn't have an audience. Well, now it's getting to the point where we're just getting to the point where it's going to have proper audience. And I'm kind of excited to see it come back. So yeah, that's my history.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
No, it's okay. I tried to keep it kind of short.
No, thank you for that. I wasn't expecting to be that short, but the other part of it, of course, was you were talking about the Hein cognac. What was the story? Might as well get it.
Yeah, well, the story behind that, I didn't even know it, is that when this beer was going to be relaunched, I followed it really closely when I got whiff of it. Somebody out in Europe kind of let me know that Thomas Hardy was coming back before it even hit the press. And I was like jonesing over it, and I eventually found out who was making it. And I scumbagged the shit out of it and wrote them, be like, listen, you need to send me some of this beer because no one's going to be your bigger champion for this beer in the United States. I'm like, you just have to do it. And I ended up striking up a conversation with some of the reps over at Interbrew. I believe it's pronounced. I don't know. I don't want to confuse it, like you said, of Interbrow, or am I reversing it? Anyway, and they kind of told me the whole kind of backstory. They ended up sending me a couple bottles of the base and a couple bottles of the barrel aged version, which was the cognac version, which was this one here, which was aged in Hein cognac barrels. And longer story longer is that Hein cognac was created by a gentleman who basically grew up where Thomas Hardy was originally from. So cognac's like champagne, only brewed in a specific region of France. And the guy who created this was born in England and moved there and created his distillery for cognac. So it was a cool little, they actually went out of their way. If you actually follow the history of them recreating Thomas Hardy, it wasn't like they were like, okay, we can make a bunch of money. Not that they didn't see profit, but they were like, they loved the beer so much they brought it back, as opposed to just trying to make a beer that people wanted to buy. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you for that, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a pretty cool story. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Let's see if Ash followed that up. What's your history?
Cherry popping, man. That's it.
It's the best. I wish I was you.
Sorry. That's all I got.
All right. So let's move over to off the 10th.
No, I've never had this one either. Not that I can remember. No, I haven't had it. Never untapped it. Never had it. And it's the first time for me. Cherry popping, as Ash would say. Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
All right. So let's add Greg in here.
Hey,
I'm taking you out of quarantine.
how's it going? Oh, well, careful. I'm going to disease everyone.
You get your pants on. All right.
Well, not really, but I am probably, much like I feel the rest of this evening is going to go, I'm probably going to be the opposite of Matt. I'm short and sweet. I've had this once before. It's from. So I've had it twice before actually, but both bottles from this batch. I think I bought 4 bottles after I had 4 bottles after I sent them to you guys. This is my 3rd bottle. I got 1 left. If you do some simple math, first time I had it was in February. That's my exciting history.
Nice.
Welcome to the jungle, motherfuckers.
Alrighty. Okay, so I'm gonna take Greg back out. Let's add Mr. Rougebeard back here and ask him what his history is.
No history, never had it.
Yeah. And I'm gonna save people time saying, yeah, no history, never had it. But I will say that I've heard of Thomas Hardy's over the years. It's kind of been one of those white whale beers. I know I've seen stuff from Matt over the years where he's raving about this Thomas Hardy's has been around since like the 60s, the 70s anyway. And I'm just like, it's one of those beers that kind of like, I don't think I'd ever thought I'd ever try it. So, but it's just kind of cool to know about. And I'm actually really glad to have my first taste of this stuff. So, without further ado, let's get to some of the comments. And who wants to volunteer to read them?
I'll read them if you want.
All right. I know I can see Greg waving there, but let's go to Lee.
Okay, Eric Gilbert's in here. He says, cheers, Foles, FOLLS, and he says, I'll leave it as it is. Basement Broham says, love this beer, and I wish I was on here having one with you gents. It's classy looking and tastes like Werther's Marmalade Leather Jam. Awesome all around, 10 out of 10. He also says 92 garbage. And Ewart, TQ Murray, is on. He says, what the fuck? Look at this professionalism. And Eric Gilbert says, Hardy Virgins.
He's not wrong. We're all a bunch of virgins here.
Not me.
All right, well, beer virgins for this beer, I think. Yeah, I suppose you've had it before, haven't you? Only once before. Tucker Murray says, the virginity abounds on so many levels. Yeah, shut up, Ewart. All right, so I don't know. You'd probably need more time to process this than what we've got. Does anybody want to talk about something?
I have stories.
All right, Matt, go ahead. What do you got for stories?
Two of my favorite stories that surround Thomas Hardy is one, I had a random guy on Instagram, and this is the early years of Instagram. We're probably talking like 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I forget. But right when I started my beer Instagram, some random dude from Pittsburgh's like, I got a case of this. Do you want it? Like, I had to pay for it, but I was like, yes, please. So I ended up getting a case of 1994 Thomas Hardy for like, I think he ended up being like $260, which is like a whole case, like of bottle, like 24 bottles. Like that was like a joke cheap.
That's a steal of it.
Yeah.
Right there.
And we're talking 20-year-old case of beer.
Like,
you know what I mean? Like, or a 30-year-old case of beer, whatever it is. The second one is actually a story that is not super old, but is super. It's tragic yet funny. So, I got married in May of last year, and so I started cultivating a bunch of beers to bring to my wedding. To like, I had a kegs of beer and decent beer and all that stuff, but I had like special beers that I had that I wanted to crack for me and my friends at my wedding. And my buddy Chucky, who if you go to like my first 2 or 3 reviews, he's in them. He brought some old Hardys. He brought a 94 and a 96, I believe, Hardy. I forget what years they were exactly, but he brought them. And so I kind of just pushed them and put them in like the cooler area way in the back and stuff. And I was like, okay, we'll crack those later because nobody drinks good beer at my wedding. Like it was like nobody. So I go over and I look and like 5 of like the super high end barley wines are gone. And not like the only people I know are drinking them are me and my friends. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Who is drinking this shit? And I look around, there's this random old dude. I don't know who he is. And he has like a second edition Sukaba from 2010, like all these crazy bottles just cracked open on it. And he's drinking them by himself on his fucking table. My fault for putting it in like the public area. So I'm not going to get mad at the dude. I was like, oh shit. I looked, he didn't drink the Hardys. I put him off to the side. You know what I mean? Took a couple select ones, left them there. I'm not gonna bash on the guy, fucking actually, I want to give the guy big ups for fucking just rolling up there and just grabbing whale fucking barley wines and chugging them to his head. More power to that guy. And so I'm like, okay. And to the point where I initially like knee jerk got really mad. I was like, motherfucker. But then eventually I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I went down and I sat down and we cracked a big bottle later, like a 750 of this crazy barley wine. I walked up to him, I'm like, you want some of this, brother? I'm like, I never met the guy still. Like I don't know who he is. Anyway, he ended up getting a decent amount of money for a wedding. So that was nice. But last week, I get 2 of these bottles. Actually, I got these from Joe, Average Joe. And I get 2 of these. And he ends up coming up. He lives in Florida. The same guy comes to my house to visit my wife and my mother-in-law. They all kind of connect. And she's like, blah, 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 blah. The guy's here from the wedding. He's saying hi. I was like, okay. And she's like, well, do you have any beer that he, is there any beer in your fridge you'd be willing to let him drink? I was like, and I was busy at work. And then like 15 minutes later, I was like, yeah, he could pretty much have anything he wants except for the Hardee's. What did he open? A fucking Hardee's. You know what I mean? And like he opened, he's like, oh yeah, you could buy these anywhere. I was like, that dude's like, I love that dude even more now. That he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna like. It wasn't like they were like in front of the fridge. Like he had to like move some shit around. And he's like dove right in for English barley wine. So I don't know who that dude is, but I want to be like adopted by this guy.
He's like a,
I feel like he's for me from the future, but he's like skinny, so it's not me.
It's like some weird.
It's like Lars or something off of Futurama, where it's like you go back in time.
Yeah,
it's like some alternate parallel universe version of the Wedding Crashers, except instead of fucking chicks, he's getting awesome beers.
Barley wine crasher, yeah.
Do you know actually who this guy is? This guy is you in the future.
That's what I'm saying. But he's skinny. I don't know, man. Like it doesn't make sense. But no, like I had 2, so it was cool. I was like, yeah, don't worry about it, whatever. Because I wanted to save one for here, but I just thought that I'm like, that guy's my spirit animal, man.
All right, so let's return to this panel.
Yeah.
There's only one more comment there. It's from Ewart, and he's saying, I have stories too, but panel is full. Yeah, right. You wouldn't come on here anyway.
Yeah, you could come on, Ewart.
You could have come on. You could have got a bottle. You probably have like 14 bottles of this in your basement from the 90s.
You know what? Without spoiling anything, next year when this comes out, I'm loading up on this big time because, wow, that's all I got to say about this.
Yeah.
Now, I am loading up. It's $7.10 when it gets released here in the LCBO. I'm jumping all over this beer. This is fucking pretty good. Dynamite.
Wow, it's something else. I'm hard pressed to come up with things while I'm distracted with the StreamYard stuff. But man, this is it's really good. The only thing I got to negative to say about it is the carbonation's low.
But there is no carbonation.
Yeah, it's hardly almost none.
Indicative of the style, though.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like really low even for that.
Well, what's going to end up happening with this actual live stream or whenever you post this, that you might actually be on the wine reviewers list now
because barley wine,
because of the word barley wine in it. So you'll be Rod J's competition for sure.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
Better than millennial stream wine,
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get down and dirty. Let's go over to Lee for a second. Let's see what. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm comparing it slightly in my memory to the one I had with Ewart years ago. It's slightly unfair to really compare the 2 different vintages because that one actually had some age on it too. Like that had a few years on it. This has 2 years. And tasting it, I'm like, it's really awesome, but it definitely could use some more years on it, I think, just to make it a little bit smoother. But it's very nice and creamy. The aroma straight up and the appearance is classic English barley wine. It's got that murky, dirty sewer water look to it that, like rust coming out of your pipes, water color kind of thing. Just big smells of sweetness, toffee, caramel, sort of dried dark fruits like dates, figs, plums, things like that. And as soon as you get into it, the taste pretty much translates. You get a little bit of alcohol astringency in the back that helps dry things out and balance a little bit. Getting kind of a leathery and almost like a tobacco ash kind of note in there as well, a little bit. But predominantly, it is that sort of candy, dried, dark fruit kind of thing is very big in this, and it's very creamy and smooth for the most part. Although I'd say the body, to quote our friend Paul, is a bit thin, but that is kind of negated a little bit by the fact that you're still getting a bit of the alcohol in the background, and it makes it feel weightier than it actually is. Yeah, for me personally, for style, I'd throw a pretty solid 9 on this, and for my personal enjoyment, I'd go about 8.5 is where I'd kind of sit on this one. I just think the one I had with Ewart was slightly better than this, so I'm kind of grading a bit on that standard and just other barley wines I've had in the past. But I mean, it's nothing to shake a stick at, though, you know.
Nice. All right, now let's pump up the marks by going over to Matt.
See, that's where you'd be wrong. I actually probably going to echo fucking Lee almost to a T, but with a little bit of a caveat. And that. Okay, I've had this vintage, the one I'm drinking right now, which is the 2018 version, and I've had the ones that you guys have had. I actually like this one better than the one that you've had, but they all kind of ring in the same way. In that this is a classic ageable beer. It's a beer that really does need time on it. So it's one of those things where, like, it's catching up at the times. You know, barley wine is life and all that kind of stuff, but it still needs time in order to mature. I got super geeked out when this actually re-released, because when it stopped being produced, which is 2018 to essentially 2016, it didn't get released. Like, they say it came back in 14. It didn't come back in 14. It came back in like halfway through 16. I was super pumped to try a fresh one. Like, I forgot what it was like fresh, like, because like 2008, I hoarded them like a little chipmunk and his little nuts, and I forgot what it was like fresh, and I do enjoy it. Like, I really do enjoy it, and I wouldn't say it's a quintessential English barley wine, because there's a big bittering component. There's a lot of like a tea bag vibe, like a tannic tea bag vibe to it, and I dig it. But it's got the building blocks of being something awesome. So I was trying to think of the best analogy I can make for this beer, and is that it's like a really good barbecue chef combined with a brisket, and that this beer is meant to be aged, and this beer ages so well. It's a core 4 beer. The barrel aged versions aside, it's a core 4 beer. It's malt, yeast, water, and hops. There's not much else to it. Those are the beers that are being aged really well, and this is one of the ones is an all-time Hall of Famer ageable beer. There's a lot of beers that age well, Belgian darks, quads, the whole nine, but your success rate on opening those are quite low. The success rate on Hardy's aging really well is fantastic. Go look at Terry Kay's review of a 1974 Hardy. Go check that out. You know, Beer Goggles reviews. He doesn't do them much anymore, but go check his out, and you'll see what it's like. And look at the various vintages you can actually get from these. These need to be aged, and the way it kind of relates to a brisket is it's low and slow, and it just works over time. There's some meats that just don't work over time. They're tasty at front. They're tasty with a little bit of time, but once you get past that 5, maybe 8, maybe 10-year mark, then, you know, they've run their course. This beer has uber longevity. They talk about 25 years in this. I would, as far as this vintage goes, we won't know. The jury's still out on that. But as far as the older ones go, they age, especially if the cap holds, which they were quite well done with doing. The way they sealed the caps on them, they age really well. So I think this beer's fantastic. You know, caramel, date figgy, you get all that stuff, but it's going to age into raisinets. It's going to age into a port wine kind of thing, which is what I covet about the beer. So while I dig it and I enjoy it, I probably land right around Lee. As far as style goes, I want to go a little bit higher, probably on a scale of 100. Probably, what's the scale we do? 9, 10?
10.
At 10. I'd probably go like 9.25 to style, because it is a little bit bitter for an English barley wine. There's a bittering that usually don't get there. So that kind of knocks down a personal enjoyment. I would probably put this a little bit lower, maybe 8.75. But here's the thing. I can taste what it's going to be, and what it's going to be is a 10 for me. If that makes any sense to anybody out there.
We had a beer like that not too long ago where we were sort of projecting, like we sort of could taste what it was now, and we were projecting what was going down the road.
Is that like the Rochefort we did last year, or is it?
I can't remember.
It was some.
Doesn't matter.
Wasn't MGD, that's for sure.
Oh, 20-year age. Yeah.
20-year aged MGD. All right, so you good, Matt?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for that, by the way. Love your input on this because this is like your thing.
Yeah, it's my thing.
All right, Ash, what do you think?
Well, I'm just going to piggyback before I give my rating. I'm just going to throw two quick things. The bottle cap is different on the inside. The lining's a lot different than anything I've seen before. So I wonder if there's something special there that, or if you guys have seen
cap
that.
though looks like a.
There's a separate lining on the inside, right?
Yeah, there is. It looks like the old lining, but without that ridge. Remember the old ridge? No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. And to bring in what someone else said earlier about it being very lightly carbonated, I wonder if that is helping with the aging process as well. 20 years down the road, you don't want something that's overly bottle conditioned or being overly bottle conditioned for that period of time, and then you pop it open in 20 years and you got something that explodes. So I'm assuming that the low carbonation is very purposeful in that regards. However, whatever the bottling process is done, they're doing it so that it is aged for 20 years and you don't open up a fucking bottle that explodes. So overall for me, aroma wise, getting huge punches of caramel, caramel dark fruit. I do get a large noticeable alcohol aroma, I guess. It's for me, I definitely notice it more than some beers, but at the same time, I don't drink a lot of big barley wine, so to that extent, my experience with barley wines isn't very deep. So I'm not too sure if that is very common to the style, or if it's just this is just a 2-year-old bottle, and that's why. But the flavor, though, just getting more caramel, a lot of really like super sweet raisin, getting a touch of leather, no burn whatsoever on this whatsoever. A little bit of chest warming at the end. I'm getting a little bit of licorice as well, like a dark licorice note. Very enjoyable, very smooth. Knowing that this was if I were to drink this, I wouldn't have guessed that this was 11.7 based on how my body feels after I take each sip. Just goes down super easy, super smooth. I actually enjoy the fact that there's not a lot of carbonation to it. Helps it finish, coats the palate really nicely. A lot of sticky lips on it, so a lot of residual sugars as well. And other than that, yeah, it's just the bittering component for me. I enjoy it. Little earthy, a little dirty, so it's right up my alley. Yeah, and just as I mentioned, I don't have a huge catalog of barley wines that I've had in the past. So, for me, for a rating perspective, I'll give this solid 9s for both style and personal preference. This is definitely a beer that, usually if I'm sitting down for the night for a beer, I'm probably going to have 2 or 3, but I can easily see myself just sitting down and just enjoying one of these all night and just taking it low and slow and, calling it a day. So really enjoyable beer. But to Matt's point, I can totally see where this is sort of going down the road. I'm going to assume probably in a few years that strong alcohol on the nose would probably sort of mellow out and it'd sort of fade away to some more of those dark fruits and those caramels and all those nice aromas would come out a little bit more. So yeah, overall fantastic beer. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah. Very good, sir. It's a 9 and 9. All right. Yeah. Okay, so let's get over to the next person, which is going to be Mr. Chris.
I don't even know where to start on this one. This is fucking fantastic. You know what? A year ago, if somebody was to pass me barley wine, I'd be like, it's okay. Or, it's not my thing. But now that another year has passed, as I drink this one, I wonder to myself, why the fuck didn't Greg, send like 17 more of these over to me? Because this is just fantastic. Echoing on what everyone else was saying about their aromas and their taste. Aroma, yeah, I don't get any of the licorice, thank God, because I'm not a huge black licorice fan. But I do get a lot of that dark fruit, and I do get a lot of that raisin and that caramel note to it for sure. Alcohol burn on this one? No. If I was going to do this one blind, I wouldn't even guess that this was 11.7. There's a little bit of a warming towards the end after you've wait a couple seconds, and then you can feel a little bit of a chest warming. But on the taste itself, I get no burn whatsoever. So that must mean my baby palate must be maturing. But for a barley wine, this is fantastic. And you know what? I'm gonna have to, like I said earlier, when I was trying not to spoil my opinion on this one, I was like, you know what? Next year when this comes out, I'm probably gonna buy a whole bunch of these and sit on them, maybe drink one once in a while. But literally, I'm going to buy a bunch of this. This is fantastic stuff. So for style, as a barley wine, I like it. It's getting a nice 9 out of 10 for me for style. And for actual personal enjoyment, this is a 9.5 for me. And I love this beer. I wish I had more of this right now. And I'm not going to go out online and start searching for it. But you know what? From moving forward from here on in, this is going to be I'm probably going to end up matting this one. You know what I mean? I'm going to try as much as I can of this and let it sit and drink it once in a while and open this up once in a while for people to enjoy. You know what I mean? So there you go. 9 and a 9.5 for me.
9. Wow. That's pretty good, Chris. Considering how far you've come in the last 3 years.
Right? I know. Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. Speaking of coming a long way, Mr. Greg, the guy who sent me this beer in the first place and we kind of been, ignoring all night.
Hello, Mr. Nick. How are you doing this evening?
Greg.
I know you're spending a lot of time muting me and unmuting me.
Because as soon as I unmute you, I can hear the fucking Straits of Etobicoke.
It is what it is. It is what it is. First of all, Chris, if you want more of this is still a self-turn in Toronto. I could definitely give you some more. I'm just kind of curiously looking on the LCB website. Yeah, it's still kicking around. It's not selling. It's not a very popular beer.
Perfect.
Anyway, that probably means it'll be the last time it'll show up in Ontario, knowing them, because there is culture.
Well, that's likely it. It's a thing. Okay, a couple things I'm going to mention. First, I'm going to say aging a beer. If this beer is better in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, age it. Don't sell it to me until it's aged. I don't buy this whole aging bullshit. If you're going to age a beer, or if you're telling me a beer is better aged, that's when you should sell it to me. When you sell me the beer is when I should be able to drink it. If you like aging beer as a hobby, great, go for it. I don't really care for it. My hands are freaking me out because it's all in a mirror image right now. If you enjoy aging beer as a hobby, great, go for it. But I don't buy this bullshit of, this beer will be better in 25 years. Maybe it will. I don't care. They take my money now. I want to drink it now. I want to know what it's like now. Second thing, I don't like barley wines. I really don't care for them. The big issue is that they're way too fucking sweet. I'm somebody who has almost no sugar in my diet, and stuff that's too sweet sickens me. But the good news is this one's not too sweet. This is one of the few barley wines I actually enjoy. It's really good. I've had this a few times before. Same vintage. This has, as far as I'm concerned, I don't smell alcohol in it. I don't get alcohol burn on it. Like somebody said, I don't really feel like if you gave this to me blind, I would assume it's like almost 12% alcohol. I mean, it feels warming. Like I would say it's probably more like 8%. So it's very smooth. Again, I'll reiterate, not sweet, which is very good for me. And I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, I'm certainly not a super fan like Matt. I've had a few barley wines in my day, but I'm by no means an expert on the style. But from my limited experience, this one is a solid. I'm going to go 9.5 on the style. I'm going to go because it's the best one I've personally ever had. There may be better ones out there because I have a very limited exposure to the style. So I'm not going to go 10, but it is the best one I've had. So I'm going at 9.5. Pardon the massive truck behind me. Personal enjoyment. not quite as high, but still pretty good. I'm going to go 8 on it. It's a very enjoyable beer. Would I necessarily gravitate towards it? Probably not, because the barley wine style just doesn't excite me all that much. I'm much happier to go for, if I'm going for a heavier beer, like a nice imperial stout or something a little bit lighter, go for a double IPA or something. So it's probably not something I'd like run towards. Unlike Chris, I can grab a whole shit ton of more bottles right now if I'd want to. I'm probably not going to. Still got one left that I'll drink at some point. But it's a solid 8. It's a very solid beer. It's not. I probably sound a little negative, but there's really not a whole lot bad I can say about it. I'm just kind of, it's good.
Nice. All right, so 9.5 and 8. All right, thank you for that, Craig. And you know what? Sorry for ignoring you the whole episode here, but
That's all right, Nick. I'm used to it.
I know. Okay, so let's add Redbeard and say what's your thoughts on this beer?
I am about to bring the score down a little bit.
Ah, fuck. All right, you're done. See ya. I'm kidding.
Barley wines have just never really been a style of liquid that I'm a fan of overall. It's not terrible. It just is not something I would ever, like, unless I was buying it for a review type thing. I buy one bottle and I don't see myself ever buying that. Maybe I'll try a different vintage if they release it again, kind of thing. But I have no interest at all in having another bottle of this particular beer. Style wise, again, not a fan of barley wine, but everyone here seems to think it's pretty high, so I'll say 8 as far as the style goes. Overall enjoyment, 5.5.
So what did you say? 8 for the style and 5.5 overall?
Yeah.
Jesus, Redbeard.
It's really just,
wow.
I don't know. Something Greg says it's not too sweet. I'm actually getting a really, 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 really high level of sweetness off it. The taste, I can taste the alcohol and it's burning me.
He's gone back to the baby palate.
I don't know what's going on, but yeah. Again, the barley wine has just never really been something I've been a fan of. So, sorry.
Yeah. All right, you're done. Well, that grad Greg back. Love your Redbeard. All right, so let's go back to my thoughts. See what I think about this whole thing, and I'm going to bring the ratings back up, but I won't bring them back up as much as some people may hope here.
Yes.
I think that this beer is ridiculously complex. I love how complex this thing is. It is an experience to drink. I get I'm pretty much parroting everything that everybody else has said. I've almost got a grocery list of flavors I've picked up on this thing that I've read what other people have mentioned. But I get dried fruits, I get figs, dates, the raisins, I get fruit cake, I get a little sweet honey kind of taste, I get black tea, I get a touch smoky, medicinal, almost like a hair bit of a peaty scotch in the background. Leather, get tobacco, get hits of cinnamon spice. It is sweet, but it's not super sweet. It's actually easily drinkable. It's deceptively drinkable. This for 11.7% barley wine. It's chewy, earthy, a little bit warming down the back, but not boozy. It's thin, but it's damn drinkable. It's just incredibly drinkable. Of all of that, I got a little bit left at the bottom of my glass. This is ridiculous how easy this is to go down. But that said, the biggest thing I got to notice that the carbonation is super low. It's inherent to the barley wine style, but it's really low even for that. It's almost completely flat. The other thing I'm not really crazy about is that sweetness. I feel like I get what they're saying. I wish I could have 5 more bottles of this that I could plaster over in a wall so I could dig them out 10, 15 years later and try then, because even after 2 years, I feel like this could mature a whole lot longer. It's really it's not cloyingly sweet, but it does taste young, even after 2 years, which is incredible. Because usually after 2 years is prime drinking time for a beer of this kind of style. But overall, I really like this. So I'm going to give it a 9 for the style, and an 8.75 for my overall rating. All right. So I am Eric Gilbert.
So you want me to get on comments? And before I do it, I actually want to read a review that I found for this vintage online from someone called Honest Booze Reviews.
All right. I'm going to remove myself from the string, bring Redbeard in so he can talk, and just so I can do up the scores.
All right. So this is what this guy has to say about the 2017 vintage of Thomas Hardy's Ale. He gives it 1 out of 10 first off. And he says, that is like if a British bitter and a porter fucked on a couch made of stale beer and cigarettes. It is horrible. It's thick and unpleasant and basically has the toffee caramel business in the worst ways. It's like what would happen if you burnt the sugar somehow in a bourbon barrel-aged beer. Like all these things he's saying that are negative sound like super awesome, by the way. But I don't get it. I don't get it.
I gotta say, his tasting notes kind of are spot on, even though I don't agree with his score.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like the tasting notes sound awesome. Like, fucking burnt shit on a couch. So like that sounds good to me.
It's like a matter of palate.
We'll get to the comments here. So Eric Gilbert, he said, kick this dude off. We saw that. That was in response to Greg, actually, I think. Yeah.
I think it was probably Redbeard because Redbeard.
Well,
no, it was before
you. Like it came up on the stream, like Nick put it up when Redbeard was talking, so it was also kind of funny there. But and then he says drinking fizzy coolers would help the palate, apparently.
No, he was referring to me because of all the coolers I've been doing and shit like that. He goes, so I mentioned my baby palate wouldn't help.
You got some experience on there. That's good.
Yeah, whatever.
So any more comments, people? Nick has to do math, so it's going to take him about 20 minutes to tally up the scores.
I mean, the only thing I'd say about the beer in general is it definitely needs some time. As far as like what Greg references is about like releasing a beer to where you want it drinkable is a little bit sophomoric. Do you know what I mean? Like there's different palates and people like different things. So in the grand scheme of things, you don't have to buy anything in your life. You can buy things where you want. So I can actually buy a 90, a 70, an 80, a 2008 Hardy. I can buy that stuff whenever I want. I just have to pay a premium for it. So if I want, if a 2018 Hardy is not my jam, I don't have to buy it. I can wait 5 years and pay 8 times the price. So it's just a matter of, perception and, just being reasonable.
Fair enough. All I feel is that whatever I buy, regardless of whether I buy it at the LCBO, it's fresh, or whether I spend 3 times the price and buy it 5 years down the road, that's where I feel I'm going to rate it. I'm never the type of person that's like, oh, I feel this beer would be better. That's kind of like, if I'm going to compare it to something I know a little bit about is cars, that's like kind of saying, oh, well, this Mustang's okay, but, if you add a supercharger to it, it's really good. It's like, well...
So you're saying that they should sell a Mustang, 1957 Mustang. They shouldn't have sold it and waited till now, because it's worth more now and it's better now.
If it's that good, then sure.
Doesn't make any sense.
That's a weird analogy.
How many 1957 Mustangs are there now that are?
You're talking about perception. You're talking about you think it's better at a certain point. I'm saying things are better at a certain point. So
was a 1957 Mustang a piece of shit when it came out?
But who?
57 Mustang didn't even come out that year.
To you, but maybe not to somebody else. So you're saying you want a brewer to release a beer when it's good for you, not when it's good.
No. If they're saying
Mustangs have always been crap, always.
Yeah.
It's just like Redbeard's opinion on barley wines right now. It's just barley wines have always been crap. Mustangs have always been crap.
Redbeard just
besides the Mustang didn't come out until 1964. It's mid-year.
Well, there we go.
Well, it doesn't matter semantics.
Take a Camaro over a Mustang every year.
Well, I would too. But anyway, the bottom line is that you release a beer, that's where I'm going to rate that beer. If it's the same thing with a car.
Yeah, I just feel like it's different because you're talking about a beer that's designed to be aged rather than a beer that's just designed to be drank.
They know who they're marketing this beer to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Some people just understand and some don't. That's all it is.
Yeah, Greg.
You also like boring Scotch, so it's kind of hard to take your.
Oh, you just like boring everything, so it's hard to.
Oh.
I don't know. I guess women are not.
That was a terrible, terrible comeback, man.
All right.
Okay.
So,
I've met him.
Can you bring on the puppet of Joe, please? I want to see it.
all right. So here's our final scores, and actually, you know what? This did really well, and I kind of wonder if this is right up there with some of the best.
How's it rank with Coors Light?
Oh, it definitely beats Coors Light. I'm wondering. I don't know. I'm not sure about MGD though.
Wow.
I think maybe this actually does better than MGD, but I don't think it does as well as Rochefort 10, what we did last year.
I should have never gave the show up to somebody else.
I would argue.
Yeah. I wouldn't have invited Redbeard. That would have brought the ratings down.
Why?
I thought I was going to do as well as Coors Light, man. I know everybody, that makes sense for people.
To be honest, if I knew that I wasn't going to like this as much as I didn't like it, I would have not busted my ass at work to make sure I could be here on time.
No, sorry, dude.
Listen, I'm the first one that'll shit on Redbeard, but his opinion is just as valid as anyone else's. So
It's true. It's true.
his score is just as valid.
Just because we don't agree with it doesn't mean his opinion's shit.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome, but I'll spend the rest of the night shitting on you to make up for that compliment.
I believe you.
Oh God! All right.
Although I will say, when it comes to weed beer, Redbeard is definitely my father in that regard, because he took that weed beer like a champ.
It was pretty good. Wasn't bad.
The funniest part is, Nick, am I the lowest score out of everybody? Maybe beyond Redbeard?
I don't think so. You
No.
gave it what 9?
I think Chris
Nine-
scored
nine-
You gave it You gave it the highest, Matt.
No, I gave it 9.25 for.
You gave it 9.25. Greg gave it a 9.5 for the style.
No,
Greg gave it an 8 for the.
No, I gave it 9.25 for style, and I gave it an 8.7 for personal enjoyment.
8.75.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ash gave it. Chris gave it a 9.5. We don't even have Chris on here because I've been switching people out. Let's move Ash. There we go. Chris gave it the highest rating. Sorry, Ash.
And I was watching Between Two Ferns with Greg for a second.
There we go.
Between two ferns with Greg here.
That's an action-packed episode. Look at this. Yeah.
Fucking
He's fun with
Zach
what he's doing, the
Galifianakis.
dirty kind of thing.
If he only had the Zach Galifianakis beard, then all of his asinine opinions tonight would actually kind of fit within the Beneath Two Ferns kind of interview style.
Well, I can't have it all, Mr. Lee.
Beneath Two Ferns. That's the best.
All right, so nobody asked what next week's beer is.
Oh, what's next week's beer, Nick?
I don't know. Nobody's asked. Oh, before
Is this something I
before
said
we,
to you as well?
while we wait for somebody to actually ask the question, like Eric, let's go over to one person I forgot tonight. We actually had a virtual Ewart tonight.
Oh, Yui.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
God,
Bring
is he
this
wearing
up.
a rest? Oh,
What is this?
Jesus!
Oh, he's so cute.
See if it works.
You're not very.
Oh fuck! I gotta turn the volume up.
Oh, come on, Nick.
Professionalism.
God damn.
Yeah. He sent it over Facebook Messenger, so I'm like, don't know how this fucking works. All right.
This is my review of the Thomas Hardy's ale. Strictly fresh, still nowhere close to achieving the glory of the 06 vintage. Not a bad beer, but not worth repeating for me. You're flat. You break my philosophy right some times. I don't love BBDWs. This one is quite good. It looks like a 6% beer. Sweetness complements toffee, dry fruit, and elaborate taste.
Oh,
All right.
he read my Untapped review. That's so
What
nice.
the hell was that?
I don't know.
And I,
I really don't know.
I said I don't like BBW, so you take that for what it is.
Wow.
So I do see Eric Gilbert's comment there. He did ask, "What's next week's lager?" It's not a lager. We're actually doing something that Greg just sent me. I haven't even done the unboxing video.
And what's next week's lager ale, Nick? Please read the full comment. Yeah. Dun dun dun
Dun dun dun dun dun
Gordy Levette.
dun.
Nick, can I just give you my rating right now? 10 for style, 10 for personal enjoyment.
No. All right. Then had Ash back in. All right. So we're gonna do GLB's Canuck Pale Ale. We were gonna do something else, but I didn't hear from Guy in time, so we don't know if he's coming next week or not. But We might change it. Who knows? But so far, we want to kind of get this one out of the way because how old did you say this was, Greg? All right, you can't talk. Hold on a second. What were you saying? How old you said this was? This was in your fridge for how long?
It's approximately a month old, so still pretty fresh.
Oh, it's a fucking drain pour.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Just fucking set it on fire. Just get rid of it.
Get a lighter.
Just cuvee with one of your Thomas Hardys, and it'll be fun.
Cuvee with Thomas Hardy. All right. So we know what next week's beer is, and because of the way the StreamYard thing is working, I'm gonna actually go back through everybody and ask them what your final thoughts are. Start with Lee. What do you think? What's your final thoughts? Well, I know what your rating is, but do you have any last parting words?
It's an excellent beer. People who don't like it, or they have baby palates, or they're sadly uninformed, or they're expecting gratification instantly, which is the wrong thing to do. And I'll leave it at that.
All right then, Matt. What do you think? What's your last parting words?
I don't know. Don't do school and stay off of drugs.
Do a lot of drugs. Don't do school. Jesus Christ! All right, Ash. What's your final thoughts?
Well, I know I enjoyed this, and I have a little bit left, and I'm going to be a good husband and go share this with my wife because I know that she actually enjoys this type of beer. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
All right, right on. All right, Mr. Chris, what's your final thoughts?
This was awesome. I wish I had another bottle. I really do. Like, I would drink this for the rest of the night, maybe 3-4 bottles, be all fucked up, and go to work tomorrow.
Oh, holy shit.
Can I interject? I want to call him Axiom 10.
Axiom 10?
No one's watched that? Like, click on Chris again.
Oh, there it is in the background. My maximum 10. But there's a
Axiom 10? Okay, I get it.
Maximum 10.
Axiom Overdrive.
Axiom
10. All right, so let's go over to Mr. Greg. What's your parting words, Greg?
Parting words. I got one more bottle of this. I'm more than happy to share it with your wife, Ashley Sexton, when you're out of the house sometime. And also, I'd really like to have an aged Mustang. That's about it.
All right, and of course, parting words to Mr. Redbeard. Yeah.
There we go.
That really sums things up. All right, so thanks for watching, folks. We'll be back next week with Great Lakes Brewing's Canuck Pale Ale. We'll talk to you folks later. Cheers.
Peace out.
It's the Man Patrol.
Penis.